This program is a paid commercial announcement and in no way represents the views of WPHT or its management.
Now on Talk Radio 1210, WPHT, WPHT, HD, WOGL, HD3, Philadelphia. Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
If we don't move in our own direction, we're going to become extinct. In fact, in some cases, we're close to being extinct right now.
Presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries, and powered by the law offices of Pond, Lehocky, Stern, Giordano. Talk, listen, and speak to the region's most influential leaders. It's Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. John Dougherty in the studio tonight along with J-Doc. I'm Joe Krause coming to you on a Saturday night live here in the studio. Doc?
Another Saturday night, Joe. We had a couple angry storms today.
But angry is such a good word for that.
You know, everything's good here. I'm shocked. This is my first tour on radio. I'm shocked how many people in Philadelphia actually listened to us last Saturday. Everywhere I went, people were talking about the show, and I'm excited about that.
Power of the radio station. We're glad to be on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. And without realizing, Doc, the start of what last week's live show was the start of a treat from around Philadelphia. And you brought in what I thought was perhaps, actually, you know what? I could say it emphatically, the best buff chicken pizza I've ever had. It was spectacular.
Let me tell you a little story about that. Last week, stopped at Franco and Luigi's, walked in, grabbed a couple pizzas, know the taste, like the taste, have recommended it for years. Stopped in yesterday. Franco himself had no idea that we talked about him last week. Said to me, I just heard that you might have talked about that. He said, we did 30 to 40 more buffalo chicken pizzas over Saturday night and Sunday. And I was joking with him. I said, well, how would you know that? He said, I'll tell you why. He said, the secret, he said, we don't usually tell people, is that we cook the chicken cutlet up right on the spot per pizza, and then we bake it on the pizza. So he turns around and says to me, God, just keep talking. I said, well, I said, pizza was last week. This week we showed up with cannolis from Termini's and coffees from Mr. Joe's. And I can't take credit for the word angry because while I was waiting for the coffee at 8th and Cross from Mr. Joe's to bring in today, the woman behind the counter who's been working there for as long as it's been open said to me, Johnny, isn't that an angry storm? So I said I had to use that tonight because I thought it was such a great word.
I was sitting outside the studio about 5:05 this evening, and that angry, and angry is a great word. That storm rolled in, and J-Doc, yeah, it was. It rolled in and out, rolled out as we look outside the beautiful studio here down at 4th and Market, and we peer outside of the glass. J-Doc, I've got to get your first before I know you want to jump in here. I've got to get you to comment on the cannolis because they look spectacular.
It took me about 3 seconds to look in the box and look over at John and say, can we eat these now? Let me tell you something. It was the creamiest, most unbelievable, hugest cannoli I've ever had in my entire life. And I regret not saving it till later because there's a whole box there, and I just there's no way I can eat any more tonight. But unbelievable.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor with John Dougherty and J-Doc. I'm Joe Krause as we broadcast you live on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. We invite you to join if you'd like to get into the conversation at 855-839-1210. Although we are loaded tonight with a lot of special guests, Doc. Hopefully, we're going to try and get Mayor Kenney, or actually Mayor Kenney's going to try and join us. He's out in the western part of the state.
Yeah, he's at the Penguins-Flyers game. It's part of the Stadium Series. I forgot that last week. He did tell me he was going to be out, but he's going to try to call on a more regular basis. And a little secret, Jimmy was a pretty good hockey player. I mean, he played, at the time they had St. Joe Prep didn't have a hockey team. He played kind of club stuff, but he also coached down at the Rizzo Rink for a lot of years. That's his sport. So, as the mayor of Philadelphia, and I guess that's where he should be tonight. But we're hoping he calls in now.
No doubt about it. And as you know, both my boys are St. Joe's Prep grads. Both played hockey at St. Joe's Prep and played there all four. Joseph played there 4 years. Xander, actually, the netminder, actually played there 5 years at St. Joe's Prep. We hope to get an update from Pittsburgh, where the weather and the temperature is supposed to be a little bit warm for a stadium series, but they're going to skate tonight, and it should be a lot of fun.
They said it's going to be about 32. It was 70 yesterday, Who believes in global warming?
Is it 32 tonight?
Yeah, 32
okay,
tonight.
good. So so the temperatures are cool. On the big show today, stay with us. And if you don't have an opportunity to pull up a cannoli and a coffee, just sit with us over the next hour as we are loaded. Congressman Brendan Boyle, scheduled doc. He's going to call around 7:15. Just
landed from Japan. There was a new leader at the head of the DNC today. Brendan's going to call and talk about the activities in D.C. He's going to talk about being in Japan, why he was there. And also, I'm not sold on, all this drama around the head of the DNC. I think it's a media-driven event. So I'm interested to see what Congressman Boyle has to say about it. I think it's people trying to keep the Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders feud going.
Let's pull up the audio if we can, Tony. Let's play that first clip that you have queued up on the DNC announcement today.
Let me give you the final results. The threshold for victory was 218 votes, 435 members were total in voting, including proxies. The results are 235 for Mr. Perez and 200 for Mr. Allison.
We are indeed the party that turns hardship into hope. We are the party that turns doubts into dreams. We're the party of inclusion and opportunity, and we make sure inclusion and opportunity is in every zip code for everyone.
Former Labor Secretary Thomas Perez, J-Doc, getting the necessary votes needed today, as you heard from Donna Brazil.
Yeah, no, he's got a big job ahead of him, and the question is, what does this mean, to the Democratic Party? We have a lot of things, a lot of strides we got to make, and certainly we need the leadership to be able to take us and get us back on track. Because right now, there's a problem, and certainly the recent election shows that.
Doc.
Yeah, again, I think that there's a lot of media out there trying to keep the Hillary-Bernie feud going. I think that whoever wins has their hands full. It's not an easy resolution. It took a lot of years to get the Democrats in the position where they're at. And my concern is that campaign was a race to the left. And I've been saying that the cultural liberalism put us in the spot where we're at today. And there's not enough focus. And the good news is that the new chair was the Secretary of Labor, so he has an understanding of it. But there wasn't as much activity back then as I would have liked anyway. And again, anytime we race to the left, I don't think it's a good day.
I mean, I think that the American people, that was what happened during the election. I think that, whether people like to, hear it or not, I think that we were going too far left, and the American people spoke and brought us back to the center. Where, whether you like it or not, certainly America's got. You got the last word, and so the election demonstrated that.
Tony, give me a cue on how much time until the break. We got 2 minutes. Let's do this real quick. Let's play the second Perez audio soundbite, and then we'll get comments from John and from J-Doc before we roll into our first break.
Where do we go from here? Because right now we have to face the facts. We are suffering from a crisis of confidence, a crisis of relevance. We need a chair who can not only take the fight to Donald Trump, make sure that we talk about our positive message of inclusion and opportunity, and talk to that big tent of the Democratic Party. We also need a chair who can lead turnaround and change the culture of the Democratic Party and the DNC. We need to make house calls. We need to listen to people. We need to get back to basics, and we need to move forward, because I am confident, my friends, I am confident that when we lead with our values and lead with our actions, we succeed. That is what the Democratic Party has always been about, and that is what we will continue to be about.
That is some words from Thomas Perez standing at the podium today, Doc. I mean, I don't know how well that message resonates. Do you have a thought on it?
Yeah, when he talks about the culture, for 8 years, he's been part of an administration that was a proponent of the culture. Where are we going from there? I want to know where we're headed. And I want to know what role labor has in the future in the Democratic Party.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor as we broadcast you live on Talk Radio 1210. WPHT. Don't go anywhere. When we come back after our first commercial break, Congressman Brendan Boyle will be along. More with Saturday Night Live. Back in a moment.
Interact with Talk Radio 1210 WPHT right now, on air and online. Facebook.com/1210 WPHT.
I won't participate on behalf of ourselves here at Local 98 or the Philadelphia Building Trades in conversations that are purely dominated on social issues that don't affect our jobs.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Dougherty and Jay Duck in the studio. We're presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries. Welcome into our living room on a Saturday night. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say that, but I bring in the Mayor Jim Kenney, joining us on the hotline. Mayor, welcome into Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. Sir, how are you?
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I'm out in Pittsburgh representing for Philly and the Flyers. Against the Penguins in Heinz Field. It's going to be a great game.
No doubt about it. And listen, John Dougherty let us in on a little secret when we were doing some of the pre-show prep tonight. He said you were one heck of a hockey player.
I was all right. We didn't have a lot of ice during the course of the winter, so we had to really search for our ice opportunities. So we played a lot of street hockey, a lot of roller hockey, but it was kind of my favorite sport back when I was growing up. And I played a lot of hockey during the day, but during my days. But it's just fun out here. Looking forward to a really exciting event. This reminds me every time I come out here what a great labor town Pittsburgh is. I just had a chance to say hello to John's counterpart out here in Pittsburgh and his wife.
Mayor, we're not going to keep you long. We know you're out there for the game. We just appreciate you taking the time to call. And I just was telling everybody that you were a really good hockey player, and more importantly, you coached down at the Rizzo Rink for a lot of years. And it's really nice having a mayor from the neighborhood who actually grew up in the department rec, that understood that what that meant to kids in the community. And again, you're having a great year for labor. You've been great for the Philadelphia Building Trades. And I'm glad you just called in because, we've been talking a lot about you here. And again, I can't thank you enough for all them project labor agreements. And
PLAs every day, John. It's the only way it works because people get paid fairly. They work in safe working conditions. The city and the state and federal government get their taxes and nobody gets beat. And the job gets done on time and on budget and safely. So I'm happy to have all those PLAs.
40 times the amount of PLAs other than your predecessor gave us. So I want to let you know we appreciate it. We stand by you. Thank you for everything.
My pleasure. You take care of yourself. It's getting cold. It's cold out here now.
Mayor,
it's not 60 anymore. It's cold and snow.
Mayor Kenney joining us. Mayor, before you jump back into your seat to watch that game, let me bring in Congressman Brendan Boyle, who's going to join with us. We may have lost the mayor. He may have dropped out, but we bring in Brendan Boyle, Congressman Boyle now joining us here on Saturday Night Live. Congressman Boyle, welcome in to Saturday Night Live with John Dougherty and Joe Dougherty Jr., J. Doc. How are you, sir?
Guys, you're fulfilling my dream. I've always wanted to be on Saturday Night Live. Now I can finally say that I made it. I'm on Saturday Night Live.
Congressman Johnny Doc here. Hey, just why don't you fill us in where you just came from? Because we know that you wanted to rush home to your beautiful wife and Abby, but where were you?
Well, a little bit further away than Pittsburgh. I was actually in Japan for the last 6 days, so it was part of a bipartisan congressional delegation trip. 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. So we're over there. We met with Prime Minister Abe, met with over 40 members of the Japanese parliament, the Diet, a whole series of business leaders and other political folks, as well as academics and some Americans who were doing business over there. So it was a fascinating trip. I'd never been to Japan before. Only the second time in my life I've ever even been to Asia. And, it's the opportunity to wear that pin and represent the United States of America abroad is something very special. And the nice thing is, even with all the craziness going on in politics right now, you should have seen when we were in those summits in those rooms, you saw 4 Republican members and 4 Democratic members that were Americans first. And presented a unified front. So it was a great trip. But yeah, having a wife and a 3-year-old back home towards the end of the trip, I was pulling out my phone and showing everyone who would look at them, photos of my adorable daughter. So was getting a little homesick by the end.
Congressman Joe Dougherty, my question is, obviously with the Democratic Party being in flux and having a lot of ground to pick up, what do you think today means with Thomas Perez's election to the head of the DNC, and how far do we have to go?
Yeah, well, first, just to kind of set the stage, because I think there are some of my fellow Democrats in D.C. who might delude themselves into thinking, well, the presidential race was very close. It was really only 1 point. Maybe just a tweak here, a tweak there will be fine. I push back strongly on that. The fact is that over the last 6 years, we as a party have lost more than 1,000 legislative seats, 1,002 to be exact. U.S. House, U.S. Senate, State House, State Senate, control the fewest number of governorships in our state and our nation's history as a party. So we're at our lowest point numerically in over 90 years. So for people, especially who are kind of more D.C. focused, who think that things are going just fine and we only need a little tweak here or there, I strongly disagree. And I mean, I've been talking about this for quite a while. I know John has, and a lot of our mutual friends, that in my view, the National Democratic Party, not so much locally, but nationally, the Democratic Party has taken for granted the blue-collar vote. And I think that this election was finally the wake-up call that some needed. So I feel good about the conversations that have been happening in the last couple months. I know from conversation I've had with Thomas Perez, who was the former labor secretary, that he's someone who gets it. I also hope that it's an opportunity to just turn the page, and that any sort of, silly hurt feelings that maybe still be left over from the Hillary versus Bernie race, people need to just, whatever side they were on, they need to get beyond that. It's about this year and the future, and whatever side people may have been on in 2016. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Neither of them are in the White House. It's full Republican control. And so if we want to rebuild the Democratic Party, it's time to move forward. And, I thought that both Tom Perez and Keith Ellison struck the right message today, being chair and deputy chair and doing a joint press conference together. I think they both get it.
Congressman Brendan Boyle joining us here on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor as we come to you on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
Congressman Johnny here again. Just wanted to let you know that, you're doing us proud, too. Every time you turn on one of the national TVs, you're talking to the pundits, and you're carrying that message, that you gotta get someplace close to where labor's at. And we appreciate that. And, again, I'm not as sold on, the effect of changing the DNC chair that you might be. I think that, I would have liked to seen the young mayor out of Indiana, somebody a little different, because I actually think the media is just going to continue this Bernie/Hillary forever. So, again, I just want to move forward. I want to get someplace where we're involved, the labor community. We spend a lot of money, and we have a lot of votes.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm actually a friend and fan of Pete. John, my thinking is that the media completely overhyped the importance of DNC chair just because they were looking for the next race and had nothing else to cover. I'm more talking about not just the DNC chair race, which in the end is an important position, but it tends to be a more behind the scenes structural party building position. I'm more talking about some of the other conversations that have been going on within the broader Democratic Party over the last few months.
Go start a conversation with your wife and baby. You've been away too long. Thanks for calling in. Go tell everybody we said hello and give Abby a hug.
And congratulations, that's Congressman Brendan Boyle making his debut on Saturday Night Live. We're back in a moment.
I believe there's room, for the national building trades, the local building trades, to have partnerships with the Trump administration as it pertains to energy, as it pertains to infrastructure, as it pertains to the undocumented worker.
And welcome back, Philadelphia, to Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Dougherty and J. Doc here in the studio. We're presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injury. Special thanks to Mayor Kenney for calling in, and also for Congressman Brendan Boyle joining us in the first half hour of the big show.
Yeah, Krause, before we move on, I want to give a little shout out to Patty Aiken, who's the president of PASNAP in Philadelphia. They represent the nurses, and they're out in Delaware County, Delco Hospital. They're going to have a 2-day strike, and these nurses are working their butts off on a constant basis, and PASNAP is organized like world champions, so that they're in the middle of a little fight, and we want to let them know we're with them.
Patty is a well-kept secret in the labor community. She has a lot of wins, and the good news about her is you never read about her in the paper. Now, you know that's a successful labor leader when you keep getting contracts for nurses in hospitals and nobody knows about it.
I mean, you're talking about Einstein, you're talking about Hahnemann, you're talking about St. Christopher's. Incredible. Organizing.
It's Saturday Night Live right here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Don't forget, coming up at the top of the hour, the Dan Loney Show. Now that he joins us for cannolis, for pizza and cannolis, we tee him up always to stick around. He comes in at 8 o'clock, but we welcome in Anthony Gallagher, the business manager for Local Union 420 Steamfitters, and he joins us on the hotline. Anthony, welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Anthony, if you get a chance, tell a little bit. There's a lot of action going on pipelines, and I don't think people understand how many job opportunities are created, okay, by the placing of a permit so that we can get a little bit of energy pipeline moving. Why don't you take a second and explain to our listeners what goes on with that?
Yeah, John, that's our bread and butter, naturally. The veins that get the gases, the liquids to where they have to go. And the pipeline themselves, we hear all the time, John, myself, and you, they're temporary jobs, but every construction job we know is temporary. But having said that, we're talking about tens of thousands of jobs that are being created right now just in the state of Pennsylvania through all the pipelines, the Mariner East, the Penn East. These are job creators that, put my members to work, put the laborers, the operating engineers, Teamsters, out there on that main line. And they get the liquids and gases to where they got to go, the end result, right? We're sitting on the biggest gas pocket in the world with the shale, and we have plenty of the shale tapped. Now we just got to get the gases, the liquids, to where they need to go. That's the key. Once we unhinge that through these pipelines, the job creation after that is what's really going to be something. The pipelines themselves, like I said, creates tens of thousands of jobs. It's the manufacturing with the cheap energy. It's the LNG plant that they're talking about building. It's supplying overseas friends, our allies. It's just the opportunities are tremendous. And they're real jobs, John.
Anthony, you had written an op-ed on this not long ago. I think I read it online, and we talked about it, I think, on the show previously. But let's talk about what that pipeline brings to the community. Of course, jobs, building it and all that, but let's talk about that.
Oh yeah, well, naturally, when you talk about the community, think about what's going on. Just some logistics alone, the amount of money they spent on community activism, our members, and John talks about this all the time. While our members are working, we're the ones coaching the baseball. We're the ones at church. We're the ones giving back. We're the ones spending our money.
Absolutely.
As you know, Doc, benevolence is the key to the building trades. It's part of our 4 cornerstones. And one of our 4 cornerstones of Steamfitters Local 420 is benevolence, and we believe in that. We believe the community benefits when local jobs benefit, and our local unions. And you can see it every day. All you got to do is get down to a ball field, no matter what time of the year, go into a gym. I heard our mayor on the radio talking about, playing street hockey and all that. Mm-hmm. It's our guys coaching them teams. It's our guys getting them kids activated in the streets, and we're real proud of that. We're real proud of what we do for the community with these jobs and with the money.
Anthony, we talk about the cultural liberalism and the need for primarily Democrats to be politically correct. And it seems that almost every campaign, there's a negative side, or at least there's a negative ad about energy. And again, we live in these neighborhoods. Okay, we want our water clean and our air fresh as well as anybody else. People have no idea that it's the Anthony Gallaghers of the world and your whole family and your whole union, okay, that make sure that the checks and balances are in place, not only for the environmental concerns, but the actual jobs. And you've done a great job. You fought the tide. You were the absolute center of every conversation. And if more people represented their members in the direction that you do, the Democratic Party and all the building trades everywhere would be much more prominent rather than just in some of the big cities and some of the outlying, Democratic suburban areas.
No, I appreciate that, John. And, we believe in what we believe in. We do believe in the truth. And like you said, these pipelines, you can rest assured, it's going right through Aston, right where I live, right? You can rest assured I'm going to make sure our guys are doing it right. And we do take great pride. And I think everybody can rest easy knowing that the members of Local 420, the laborers, the operating engineers, Teamsters, when we're out there laying that pipe in that ditch, we know exactly it's going through someone's neighborhood, and there are neighborhoods. And we know exactly the importance of doing it right, doing it safe, and nobody's going to have us do it unsafe or cut corners. It just won't happen because we won't do it.
And that was one of the things that you had in your op-ed, Anthony, how important it was to do it safely, and obviously with the high-quality trained workers. But tell me how many workers it will employ, the pipeline will employ when it's being erected.
Just the Mariner East alone, as you're looking at like 3,000. Just on Mariner East, down on our end. That's down on the eastern end. When you get out west, and then you're looking at some of the supplies that are going out there, you're looking at another 7,000. You're probably talking over 10,000. Just on Mariner. And you might not know much about what's going on out west, but there's a whole big shell plant being built, a $6 billion plant out there, and it's just another tremendous anchor for the state of Pennsylvania. And I gotta give a plug to our governor. He understands it, and he understands that he's hiring the right people to take care of the right environmental issues. He gets it. He truly gets it, our governor, and it's a tough fight for him. It's a tough fight for any Democrat, like you were saying, John. To fight that extreme view, and we got to push back on that.
We know your brothers give you all the information for tonight. We know that, okay?
It's Anthony Gallagher, the business manager of Local Union 420, the Steamfitters, joining us here on Saturday Night Live, right here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. We'll take our commercial break. When we come back, more of The Big Show. Back in a moment.
It tells you you are in America. Weekdays noon till 3 on Talk Radio 1210.
I've been coming out of step with them guys, okay? And I was a treasurer of the Democratic Party. I've been a loyal Democrat my whole life. But I've told people, and it hasn't, like I told you, it just didn't resonate with this election. If you look at the last few years, I've been telling people we have to become a little bit more individual. We have to be more of our own brand. We have to do a better job at becoming a business.
Live on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. It's Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor, John Dougherty, Jay Doc, and Joe Krause in the studio at 4th and Market as we look outside over the water, looking at the bridge as the storm has rolled out of here.
Yeah, it's great to have Anthony Gallagher on. I got to tell you, we wrote a story about him in PhillyLabor.com a while ago about representing the future of the labor movement here in Philadelphia. Guy's a member of the zoning board, advocates on behalf of his members like nobody I've ever seen. Unbelievable guy.
You listen to some of the talk and some of the words about the number of jobs and the amount of the impact. And
he's innovative.
Sometimes I feel, Jay Doc, and we're not going to be able to get into it tonight, but sometimes I feel like the public doesn't get it. They don't understand it. But that's what we'll continue to do.
Well, that's
here.
what this show's for, right?
That's what we'll continue to do on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. Doc, I want to make sure we get to Trump bullet points from you. Give me at least two before we roll on here on your two Trump thoughts of tonight.
It's funny. President Trump said that he won't be attending the Washington Correspondents' Dinner.
I did see that today.
Yeah,
right?
but then it probably doesn't matter because every day is a correspondence dinner minus the chicken right now. That's number one. And number two, understand that Sean Spicer gets beat up every day, down there, not only by the press, but by some of the macho billionaires that are now the cabinet because he gets played by Melissa McCarthy on Saturday Night Live. Now, the question I have is, everybody knows, Frank Keel's a good friend of all of ours. Frank Keel's
handling the PR for Saturday Night Live.
Okay, well, he's handling it. Let's think about if Saturday Night Live did a skit. Okay, who, and it was a female, who would play Frank Keel? Well, to get that, wow. Who would play Frank Keel?
J. Doc, do you have any?
Female?
First of all, so it's just for the benefit of the listening audience. If you had to describe Frank Keel in a word or two, how would you describe his personality?
I mean,
direct, defined.
He's like a macho type of guy. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. So I would say I can't go with a female. I just can't. I mean, you bring Will Ferrell back.
Nah, you got to stop it then. It's either a female or not.
John, I'm going to have to defer to you.
Brash.
By the way, Frank's like 6'2".
Yeah. Frank is brash.
Yeah, he's brash.
And big.
He's 6'2".
And big. It'd have to be big, girl.
Can I say Rosie O'Donnell, or that doesn't work?
Well, listen. If I say Caitlyn Jenner, I'll never talk to me again, right?
He's 6'2", and he's got a reach. So I'm not going there.
Okay.
It's Saturday Night Live. We'll continue to debate that with Frank Keel when we maybe after the top of the hour.
I didn't come up with that, Frank, by the way.
Here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Let's bring in Mike Bradley, who joins us on the hotline right now on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Mike, welcome into Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor and John Dougherty. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Mike, why don't you give a little, we're getting short on time. The parade is changing route, and you've been a great parade director for St. Patrick's Day Parade for years. Why don't you let the listeners know where we're going to be this year?
I will, but I'm telling you, I'm listening to the show, and it's fantastic. I'm honored to be on the same show as Brendan Boyle, Mayor Kenney, and Anthony Gallagher, because I look up to all of them. They're great people. But I tell you one thing about the St. Patrick's Day Parade or any of these parades, they don't get put on the street without the support of Local 98 and Local 420. And all our labor unions. They do Anthony did such a great job talking about benevolence, and there is no way that we could do that without the unions. So I want to thank John, you, and Anthony, and all the business managers of our local unions, because they don't get enough publicity for all the good things that they do. We are lucky enough to work with a mayor that loves parades, and we are this year have a brand new parade route. We're starting at 16th and JFK, and we're marching around City Hall and going down Market Street, which is going to be beautiful in the next couple of years, the way the city's just it's booming with cranes again. So we're really thankful for that. And we are ending in front of Independence Hall. Actually, it's the Independence Visitor Center at 6th and Market. So, and if you remember, Notre Dame played Temple there a few years ago, and 2 years ago, and College Game Day was there. So it's a fabulous location, full of history. And since our country was founded in 1776, our parade started in 1771. So to be right across the street from where our country was founded is a huge honor.
Why don't you, Billy Ivers is our new president, but why don't you tell who our Grand Marshal is this year? What a great family.
Sure. Barney Boyce is the Grand Marshal. He was born in Donegal, and he told a funny story the other night. He was only in this country from Ireland for 1 year, and he was drafted into the Army and honorably served our country. He's a member of the Donegal Association. He's a member of the Irish Center and the Irish Immigration Center. It really gives back. Two of his sons are singers in the group Blackthorn, which is well known in our community. And his daughter, Karen, is a board member of our parade as well. She's also a great singer in her own right. And they are the most humble family, very talented. You'd never know it. They're humble people. And his wife, Carmel, and Barney, I tell you, two of the greatest people I ever met.
That's
So we're thrilled to have them.
Mike Bradley checking in with Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor with John Dougherty and J-Doc. Mike, great stuff, man. Appreciate you listening to the show. And remember to tune in every Saturday night live right here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. We're live at 7 o'clock every Saturday night. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Certainly. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say one quick thing. I heard, I think Mayor Kenney and Brendan say how being inclusive is important. Our parade's been inclusive for many, many years. We welcome everybody to celebrate our heritage and our faith, and look forward to seeing everyone on March 12th. Thank you.
All right, that's good stuff. That's Mike Brady, new route, right?
Yep, second largest parade in America. Philadelphia St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Love it.
Wow.
Second largest.
With a new route and a great spot to end. It's a great spot to end the parade. I know that because that's where the Veterans Parade all culminated, the first and second year. It's just a great way to end it up, and it was fantastic.
1771? I mean, that's incredible, man. People don't realize how much it takes to obviously facilitate and direct the parade and all that goes into it. And of course, Mike does a great job.
And J-Doc, I'm going to come back to you for your last word here. I just want to remind all of our listeners, and Doc, I'm coming to you for last word. You get last word tonight. I want to jump away from politics and everything else. I got to get your opinion on the nasty vibe. There's a crazy vibe in Philadelphia, and it has to do with the 76ers. Back to you in a moment. I just want to remind our listeners, we're presented by Weinman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries, and we're powered by Pond Lahaki, unmistakable, the workers' compensation law firm. J-Doc, I give you 30 seconds for your wrap.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's Black History Month, and we haven't said anything about it yet on this show, and just want to, pay homage to it and talk about just briefly Martin Luther King. And people talk about Martin Luther King. Obviously, he was a great civil rights leader, but he was also as much a labor leader as he was a civil rights leader. And so, obviously, a huge shout out there and paying homage on Black History Month.
All right, well done and well said, J-Doc. Thank you very much for being here on a Saturday night. There's one cannoli left for you in the box. All right, I'm going to take one home.
Against you, Krause.
one left in the box, but well done on your part, J-Doc. Thank you very much, Doc.
Yeah,
what's going on with the Sixers right now? Twitter's blowing up. Everything on this Nerlens Noel trade. You get last word.
Yeah, look, I'm a homer. I think every trade's going to be a great trade. I think every draft we get the best player in the draft. I'm a diehard. A couple Mondays ago, coming out of Estella on 2nd and Bainbridge with the family, the Sixers were ready to jump ball with the Charlotte Hornets. And here across the street is Noel smoking some weed with a girl. And I don't know if I'm more upset about him getting high or him not being down there supporting his team, even though he was injured.
That's last word with John Dougherty. It's Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor, presented by Weinman Pain and Wellness. Thanks to all of our guests for calling in and being a part of the big show today. On behalf of J-Doc in the studio, Tony behind the glass for making it happen. Well done, Tony. And, of course, John Dougherty hosting Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. I'm Joe Krause. We'll see you next time.